Elizabeth Warren's Medicare For All plan is finally out. The price tag is more than $50 trillion. Will there be tax hikes to pay for it? We'll reveal all.
Team Rising is here. Joe McClain is a Democratic strategist, and Gabby Orr, White House reporter for Politico. So, literally breaking news this morning, about 20 minutes ago, Elizabeth Warren, she's released her Medicare For All plan. Basically, she has option 2, so she wants to switch her approach to what she calls Medicare For All. It would cost the country $52 trillion over 10 years.
Which,
now, Joe,
by the way, is less than what we pay now.
Right.
So we know.
Well, so I think it's parity according to their own. So what they have, Joe, basically is to take all basically the employer contributions that are currently spent to private health insurance companies, that would go to the government. In addition, to make up about $20 trillion more that they need, corporate tax hike, tax on the 1%, and also reallocation of the military budget. What do you think about this electorally going forward?
Never sell it.
Really? Why is that?
Never sell it. You cannot be elected president of the United States by promising to take things away from people and charging them more for it. You just can't. It won't work. Sorry. I'm a Democrat.
Right.
I love Obamacare.
I think Crystal's about to come after you.
Hold on. What are you talking about? Pay more for it. Costs go down for families here. I mean, she managed to do, look, you can debate the numbers, and we're going to dig into this, I'm sure, as the days go forward. But taxes on middle class don't go up under this plan. Cost will go down a lot. And what are you taking away? I mean, you've got so many people now, millions of Americans who don't have coverage at all. You have plenty more who every year, it's not like you've got stability in the market now. They lose their job, they lose their coverage, they change job, they stay with the same employer and their coverage gets changed. So it's not like Americans are in love with their health insurance companies. There's a reason why this
Yeah, they kind of are. That's the thing. We all talk about how bad insurance companies are, but people generally like their employer-provided health insurance, and when you start threatening
they like their doctors.
That's true.
They like their doctors.
They don't love Aetna or whoever. I mean, come on. You got love for
Gabby,
your health insurance specifically?
Not the research I've seen. I'm sorry. I know I sound like a Republican here, and I'm sorry, but won't work. Can't say.
I do want to ask you more about the electoral implications here. Do you think this is going to she's gotten a lot of heat about you don't have a plan for this. Well, are you going to raise middle class taxes? What do you think is going to play out on the debate stage, right? So how are the attacks going to materialize, and will some of the questions be silenced at least?
No, I think there are going to be more questions about her Medicare For All plan after seeing the details this morning. Number one, one of the things that was really focused on is the essentially a payroll tax on employers. I think that there are going to be some arguments made by the more centrist Democrats on how that could trickle down and affect wages of employees.
Right.
It's kind of a fantasy world to say that putting that tax on employers isn't going to somehow affect the people who are working for them. So I do think that there are going to be a number of questions that come up, but it's also something that's going to lead to questions on the campaign trail. My colleague Ryan Lizza had a fantastic story out this morning just about the number of questions that Elizabeth Warren faces on healthcare in particular when she's out stumping in New Hampshire, stumping in Iowa, and how so far she's really struggled to answer them in a compelling way.
Well, what I would say about, what she argues in this plan is that essentially the taxes they're already paying for health care will then go instead, to the health insurers, will go to the government. So it would not be a net gain based on what she's saying in terms of these numbers in terms of employer payroll tax. But I think that's a good point. I think it is something that will be used against her. I do think, and I read that Lizza piece as well. He's a great writer. He had a really good piece on how many questions she's getting on the trail about healthcare. Now, healthcare is the #1 issue for Democratic primary voters, and it's #1 or #2 for voters overall. So this is a very important part of any campaign. And Joe, maybe where I can find some common ground with you here is the fact that she has allowed this to fester. And that she isn't seen as a leader on this issue, either from the sort of centrist side or from the progressive side, is a liability for her. And we see that in the New Hampshire poll that came out this week, where voters overwhelmingly said they trust Bernie Sanders the most on health care, not Elizabeth Warren.
Yeah, Crystal, we completely agree on that. The other problem I
hate fighting with you, Joe.
I know. Because we love you, we do. The other problem they have is a more fundamental problem. Campaigns are basically really simple things, right? And they generally come down to pretty simple choices. Here, the Trump campaign has already telegraphed their overall messaging strategy. They're going to call Democrats socialists. They just are. They're going to call us communists, right? This plays
it's a very original move.
But this plays directly into their hands, and I already hear it. I mean, when I take my taxi cab, greasy spoon, and barbershop poll, I already hear people saying, well, they're socialists, I'm going to vote for them.
But on the other hand, they're going to freaking do it anyway, so you may as well actually have a plan that's going to deliver the goods for people. I mean, that's the part is like, look, they called Obama a socialist, which was ridiculous, but people sort of bought it. And then you had, he ended up with this healthcare plan, which was better than the status quo, but it was basically, industry approved plan, which people kind of feel like meh about. You may as well actually go for the thing that you care about. And you talk about campaigns being a simple thing. Medicare for All is so simple to understand versus, well, we're going to expand this option if you want to buy in and there's an income threshold, et cetera, et cetera. That's why, forget about the details of how you're going to pay, where it's coming from and who, whatever. It's simple to understand and people like Medicare and they trust that brand.
Except it's not. It's not Medicare for All. It's socialized medicine. Bernie's plan, which Elizabeth Warren adopted, flatly states, I mean, if you read the bill, which I haven't read the whole thing, I confess, because I don't really have insomnia, so I don't need to read the whole thing. Right. But he flatly says that 2 million people, they estimate, 2 million people in the insurance industry are going to lose their jobs. Yeah. They're going to outlaw private insurance. That's not Medicare for All. It's not anything like Medicare for All. You can't sell it. The American people won't buy it.
Gabby, I do.
And yet the polls show that it's quite popular, and not only with Democrats. I mean, look, the two candidates who have been strongest for Medicare for All are doing the best right now in the Democratic primary.
I do think that, though, it is important to focus on the pay-fors and how we're going to fund this program. And I do think that there are valid questions that both voters and other candidates on the stage have about that. It's not just something that you can gloss over and say, no, this is a superior healthcare program or healthcare system, and let's just focus on that. I mean, there are middle-class voters who are going to worry, okay, well, if this costs $52 trillion, what does that mean for my bottom line? And those are the questions that these candidates do need to address.
Sure, but I think she had a great line in this plan where she says, look, it costs less actually than the current systems. The question is not, can we afford it? Does it cost more? The question is who's going to pay it. And I think that's what you're saying as well, and that is an important
I think
question.
This is what it gets to, which is I actually think that ultimately Bernie's plan for the very beginning was the correct one, where he's like, yeah, the taxes are going to go up and the overall costs are going to go down. Trying to do this whole like DOD reshuffling and this and that, I think it only feeds more into the idea that like, I don't know if we can really trust that you're going to do it, because which politician in their right mind says, yeah, taxes are going to go up? But their authenticity of that is something that just inherently, I think, helps you out on the campaign trail. But we're going to talk a little bit about more on some stuff. You guys sit tight.
We'll have more after a quick break. Good one. Stick around.